matter of disqualification of certain MLAs, and once that is decided, only after that can you have a floor test, because later on if you say that those MLAs are disqualified, then that decision of the floor test is irreversible. On 2 occasions, of course, the Supreme Court has in fact observed orally in the middle that that decision would not be irreversible if they find out later on that there was something wrong with the procedure. They could annul the decision. However, Neeraj Kishan Kaul has pushed very strongly, very vehemently through his submissions that in fact the floor test is where the real dance of democracy is decided. It must be moved on with. You must go ahead with a floor test to ensure who has the numbers. That is the basic contour of today's argument. That is what the Supreme Court will be deciding. An interim order, whether or not there is any interference with the governor's decision to call for a floor test, that is where all the eyeballs are at. Will the Supreme Court decide to interfere or not interfere at all with the governor's decision to call a floor test is what the basic requirement of this coming order is. It will be out very, very shortly. The bench will pronounce that order very, very shortly. But on a number of occasions, the Supreme Court, including today's hearing, has indicated its inclination towards saying that a floor test, there's nothing wrong with conducting a floor test. And on previous occasions, we have seen in the Karnataka case, be it the Madhya Pradesh case, or even in the Maharashtra case earlier, that the Supreme Court has been in favor of ordering and allowing a floor test to go ahead. And that was something that was referred to a number of times by the Shinde camp's lawyers, kept saying that never before has the Supreme Court sat so late to oppose a floor test. In fact, it has only sat this late to allow a floor test. So in moments from now, the bench will in fact assemble yet again and pass its order as to whether or not the governor's order for a floor test is good as per the law.
Absolutely. And in fact, Nilashish, very, very important that we are looking at a situation where the fact that a floor test can be held or not tomorrow is what is under consideration. The argument of Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who on part of the ruling alliance has argued that tomorrow is not the opportune time. Many excuses and reasons have been given, Arunil, from several MLAs who are traveling abroad to some who are unwell with COVID, and also several constitutional precedents that have been cited by, in fact, Abhishek Manu Singhvi during the course of his arguments. His argument is saying that not that there should not be a floor test at all, but tomorrow is not the right day. That's the argument of the MVA. Clearly, they appear to be buying some time. Arunil.
For the Shiv Sena CM Uddhav Thackeray, but for the BJP as well. With me is BJP leader Ram Kadam. We'll first have a word with him. What do you think? It has been challenged by CM Uddhav Thackeray in the Apex Court, but is the BJP confident? How is the mood inside the President's Hotel, and what are the strategies? Can you reveal something?
We really do not understand why Mr. Uddhav Thackeray is not tendering his resignation. When he does not have majority, his own MLAs are not with him. And it's very much clear that he does not have majority.
Right.
And the way he has been behaving is not correct. On a moral ground, he should immediately resign. That's the point number one.
On the moral grounds,
point number
Mr.
two,
Thackeray should immediately step down. That's the word coming in from the BJP. The BJP confident that they have the numbers. They're confident that their arguments in the Apex Court will ensure that there is a floor test that takes place tomorrow. We are expecting any minute now the judgment to be pronounced inside the Supreme Court. Our legal editor Harish Nair will be getting us all the updates from inside the Apex Court. Nilashish reporting from outside the Supreme Court. But let me quickly get in a word from Padmaja, who's also joining us. Padmaja, very quickly, if you can take us through the arguments and counter arguments. Both Neeraj Kishan Kaul and Abhishek Manu Singhvi made some very forceful arguments. Both had precedents that they had cited. And what is, in a sense, going to be decided and make a difference is whether the floor test happens tomorrow or not. And if so, whether any conditions are imposed by the court.
Absolutely. In fact, the main question today was, should there be a floor test and should it happen tomorrow? Neeraj Kishan Kaul made a very a pointed argument that if numbers have to be proven, if the Shiv Sena thinks they have the numbers, why are they running away from it? It should happen as soon as possible because it is in the interest of the people. The court made three very important interventions saying that ultimately, in the assembly, you have to make a test of your numbers. You have to prove your majority. Second is that what the court observed is that if the government has ceased to enjoy majority, can you use the speaker to try and disqualify MLAs? And ultimately, it will be the court which decides who are the MLAs who can participate in the test vote. So three very important interventions. Very big news, of course, also being broken by our colleagues in Mumbai, led by Arunil, saying that on this order, you have got the eyes of two people. Both people, one the incumbent, the other the claimant, Devendra Fadnavis and Uddhav Thackeray, both keeping a very, very close eye on what happens in the Supreme Court. And the big news for which we'll go across to Arunil also, could Uddhav Thackeray be set to quit? Big Hindutva push that was made in the cabinet meeting, Madhav, was that the final Hindutva gambit, as it were, Madhav?
Well, absolutely. In fact, that big renaming spree also that happened earlier today. Let me get in a quick word from Deepak, who's also joining us at this moment from on ground in Mumbai. Deepak, that big renaming spree, now that has already stirred a huge amount of controversy because this appears to be, and in fact, the BJP is calling it a last-ditch attempt at saving some face when this government, of course, is facing a lot of pressure of having compromise, particularly the Shiv Sena, on issues pertaining to Hindutva, and that's why we are seeing Aurangabad and Osmanabad being renamed. Deepak.
Yes, absolutely. And the political pundits, of course, have time and again been maintaining that the biggest problem that the Shiv Sena, of course, face that they have an ideological threat that they have because the roots of the party, of course, lie in its ideology. What Balasaheb Thackeray spoke about in the past, but now the concern that Uddhav faces, of course, is with his party saying that with the alliance with the NCP and the Congress, that entire ideology is at risk, and how is the future of the party going to be? And that's where the 39 MLAs are saying that they wouldn't probably have a future if this alliance continues. As far as outside Matosri is concerned, the things at this point in time remain pretty calm. It looks like all eyes are on what the Supreme Court is going to say. Sources here really tell us that at this point in time anything could happen in the next 1 hour. In the last couple of weeks, of course, we've seen high political drama with Uddhav Thackeray, even sources saying that he could be resigning. But whether that's going to happen once the Supreme Court decides that there's going to be a floor test, or is it going to be like we've seen in multiple states with Uddhav deciding to go in the floor of the House?
So we're waiting for the judgment. The pronouncement is shortly. Harish Nair, our legal editor, is telling us. But before I go across to our other correspondents, very quickly, Deepak, take us through what's happening outside the location where you're at. Are Shiv Sainiks present there? Because there is a possibility that even the Chief Minister could step down, is what sources were indicating. Is that a real possibility? Is there a build-up of party members of the Shiv Sena, the Shiv Sainiks? Are they present on ground? What's happening around you? Very quickly, take us through that.
Well, Madhav, the scene probably behind me is an indicator of the situation for Uddhav Thackeray at the moment. No Shiv Sainiks here, no party supporters or cadres really outside. You can see just policemen guarding the gate and nobody, right now present. And with, so many MLAs as well at this point in time threatening to break away from the party itself, and with no support really coming in here, and the Supreme Court, of course, going to give its verdict on a very crucial issue at this point in time, and him in the next 24 hours possibly facing a floor test. Is this a scenario that he wanted, or would there be a better scenario if there were Shiv Sainik supporters really stationed outside, backing Uddhav Thackeray? That would have showed a real strong sentiment, but that's not what we are seeing. Probably a strong indicator of the things to come for Uddhav Thackeray. But like I was mentioning, is there an ace
perhaps an indicator of what's happening? But let me get in a quick word before I go across to Arunil and Padmaja. A quick word from Nilashish. Nilashish, Harish updating us saying that the judges are yet to assemble. 9 o'clock is when you were expecting the bench to assemble. That's not yet happened. Is there some kind of delay? What's the word coming in, Nilashish?
Well, as far as the bench is concerned, of course, it hasn't yet assembled, Madhav, but we must take into account the fact that the hearing has lasted for over about 3.5 hours. So a number of arguments, as we were just discussing, have been put forward in terms of submissions from both sides. So, of course, the judges will be deliberating as to the contours of all the submissions made and what exactly the order could be. So the delay is not really unexpected. Maybe another 5-7 minutes at most for the judges to probably come out and deliver their verdict. Now, of course, as we said, the arguments on both sides have carried weight, have been made through precedents as well. So, of course, the court will look into the aspects of the law involved and whether or not certain precedents apply and whether certain similarities between various cases.
What's happened in the past, every state where there has been some kind of change in power midterm, whether it is Karnataka, whether it is the state of, for instance, Arunachal Pradesh, whether it is Madhya Pradesh, all of those judgments, Uttarakhand even being cited time and again. But I want to quickly get in a word from Padmaja on what we've seen happening all evening in Maharashtra. Now, notwithstanding what's going to transpire in the apex court, Padmaja, every indication that has been coming in this evening from Maharashtra is of a Shiv Sena that is perhaps resigned to its fate. Not just the big ticket announcements, Uddhav Thackeray leaving from that particular meeting in departure mode. The very speech that he gave to his cabinet colleagues, thanking them, apologizing for any mistakes of 2.5 years. It does seem that Uddhav Thackeray is all set to make or take the big step if the SC verdict does not go in his favor.
And the big question is right now and will remain over the last 2 weeks, that was what being asked. If the Shiv Sena has the numbers, why are they not facing their constituents? Why are they not coming to the floor of the House? Why are they opposing it? Why are they delaying it? And that's also what the court also observed. Today, the body language, like you said, very, very interesting, where you had Uddhav Thackeray walking out and saying, bench has just assembled. Big news breaking right now. The bench has just assembled. Any moment now, we are expecting the Supreme Court to pronounce its orders. Two people who are going to be watching it very closely. We have Uddhav Thackeray at Matoshri Arunil telling us that there is a very, very high possibility that having played his last Hindutva card in the cabinet meeting today, he might just step out on a Hindutva high. Devendra Fadnavis, because now all eyes are going to be on him, is going to be watching the court proceedings very closely. After that, a meeting of the BJP legislators will start because the logical next step will be, all right, we've got the big news coming in.
Yes, big news coming in. Big news coming in. We are not staying the special session. So there is going to be a floor test tomorrow. Ostensibly, that is the big update coming in. Will the Supreme Court elaborate further on this? Big news coming in. The Supreme Court has cleared the decks for tomorrow's floor test. The governor's order has been upheld. Big breaking news coming in. In fact, this is a massive development taking place. So a floor test in all probability is going to take place tomorrow. The further details of this remains to be seen, but the court not coming in the way of the floor test. Over to you, Neelashish.
From the Supreme Court, they are not going to stay in a special session. There will be a floor test tomorrow as per the orders of the governor.